All right, good afternoon, happy Friday, and welcome to our virtual roundtable open forum, as I like to call them, Open Forum Fridays. My name is Spencer Giese. I'm a research education specialist at ACUI, and I'm happy to be here again hosting a virtual roundtable for the field of housing residence life. Really, today is an opportunity for us to come together, talk about what's going on our college campuses, lessons learned, ability to connect with one another, and hopefully take some strategies back to our home campuses in our work with students and housing residence life. Before we get too far into it, I just want to bring up again that we've got a lot of online resources that ACUI is putting together. So we have YouTube. On our YouTube channel, you'll find recordings from our prior virtual roundtables. You'll also see we have dedicated threads in our ACUI online community in terms of COVID-19 resources and responses. And we also have an entire page of COVID-19 resources just dedicated to continually growing that for the field. So check those out. I am joined by 4 outstanding co-facilitators today: Bobby, Rick, Mary Catherine, and Paul. Really excited to have you all get to know them a bit more today, and we get to hear about their perspectives and what they're experiencing on campuses, and hopefully we can answer a ton of your questions. Speaking of questions, today, again, as a reminder, our virtual roundtable is really an opportunity for you as audience participants to participate. So we'd love to have you use that Q&A button that you see in your Zoom menu and start submitting questions as soon as now. If you have topics you want to make sure we touch on today, please put those in there. This is really a webinar that has an opportunity for you to be engaged in it. You're not just going to listen and follow along with slides, but you're going to participate and hopefully really gain something from this experience, and for taking an hour of your day to join together as a collective and as a community. Again, you've got that Q&A button where you can be submitting questions. As you do submit questions there, if you could just put your name, institution, title. We want to help connections grow here. So in the Q&A, every audience participant can see those. They can respond to those. So if there's a question that's posed and you have a resource to share there, you can feel free to type that in and help that person out. And also, we've seen great connections happen offline after participating in the Q&A. And also, you can upvote questions. So if you see a great question, you're like, I have the same one, I want to make sure we cover that, be sure to upvote those. Just to gauge how we're doing in terms of audio visual, in your menu, you have the ability to raise your hand. And if you are seeing our PowerPoint slide deck, if you're hearing us clearly, if you could just raise your hand, hit the raise hand button and show us that you are present, you are connected, things are going well. Great. Seeing a lot of hands go up. That's excellent. I'm going to lower those. We will be using that raised hand feature as time goes on. So there may be a prompt that's given today, and you have the opportunity to say, hey, I may ask a question, have some folks that would like to raise their hand and talk about that topic. We will then bring you live into the group if you raise your hand and connect you with the virtual conversation. So hopefully, as participants, we're excited for the opportunity to connect and ask questions and share feedback and share comments and strategies that you're using right now. But enough of our preface for the session. Let's hear from our co-facilitators. Let's get to know them a bit more and also find out what their response on campus has been like to COVID-19. So co-facilitators, if we could just get to know you, introduce yourselves, and kind of share that. So we will start with Bobby.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bobby Cole. I serve as the Assistant Vice President of Student Life and Director of Residence Life and Housing at William Peace University, a small private institution in Raleigh, North Carolina. And Spencer, you want me to go through what steps we've taken now? So at William Peace, our students were encouraged to leave campus once back in March 13th. We made that decision to go online with our in-person classes. So all of our students were encouraged to leave campus if they were able, and then students that had extenuating circumstances were allowed to apply for an exception to remain on campus, and those were approved or denied on an individualistic basis. So we're currently about 50 students that are currently residing on campus. Those students were approved based on housing insecurity, finances, and different concerns of that nature. And so our students are currently taking online classes that started this week. We're operating dining on a very limited basis with students needing to come in to obtain a takeout of a meal, and they're able to take an additional meal with them so that we've reduced those dining hours as well. And then we're currently using some virtual engagement to engage our students on campus, using about 6 of our resident assistants who remained on campus to engage with those 50 students that are remaining on campus. So that's a little bit as to where we are in our response right now.
Thanks, Bobby. Rick.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rick Morisi. I am the Director of Housing and Dining and Student Centers here at DePaul University in Chicago. So in terms of our response to the COVID-19 crisis, it's actually very similar to what Bobby just described. So just over 2 weeks ago, an email came out from our president on a Wednesday night, letting all of our students know that we would be kind of clearing out the campus, that finals, which had not occurred yet, we were a couple days out from finals at that point. Finals would be online and spring quarter would be entirely online. So that decision was made at DePaul pretty early on. We also stated at the time that our campus, for all practical purposes, would remain open. But that we were highly recommending all the students to move out of the residence halls for those that lived on campus. As we all know, things change very, very quickly. And just a few days later, our governor, Illinois, became one of the first states, I believe, to issue a shelter-in-place order. And that really changed, again, the scope of kind of everything we were doing, right? So we told our resident students that they could finish their finals. We did not want to interrupt their process of studying and preparing and taking finals, but that right after that was done, they really did need to move out. As Bobby noted, we had some exceptions. So we do have some students, but only a little over 50. I think we have like 57 students who have remained on campus for a variety of reasons, as Bobby noted: international status, financial status, home insecurities. And we have like a few lab classes that are going to meet periodically with social distancing, of course, in mind, on the campus for the spring quarter. So that's what we were left with, about 57 students. We are also doing a very limited takeout dining program in our student center. And so that building will remain open, and we have condensed all of the students into one residence hall. So basically, we're actually on spring break. Today would be the last day of our spring break, and Monday starts spring quarter. So come Monday, really the only 2 buildings on campus that will be open will be the one residence hall where our students are living, and the student center, so that we can provide dining, and a computer lab that also exists in the student center. So things have evolved quickly. I'm sure that's everyone's story, but that's kind of the status of where things are at now. Our campus will remain essentially shut down for the spring quarter, with only those select students that are on campus and some select staff that are there to take care of them. So that's where we're at right now.
Thanks, Rick. Mary Catherine.
Hello, and I apologize for the cutout in my camera. I have a laptop that died, and I quickly switched to another laptop that was sitting ready to go. Any calls? There you go. I'm on duty, so that's the first thing we should all know. So we are taking care of our students on campus. We're in residence life and housing. We're used to this, right? So I am an assistant director at Rochester Institute of Technology in Rochester, New York. That's about 6 hours north of New York City. One of the unique things about our COVID-19 response is that New York is becoming one of our epicenters in the country, and the governor's response is for the whole state. And so it's kind of interesting being being somewhere close to an epicenter, but we're not exactly there. When we got word that this was all starting to unfold, we were thankfully on spring break. And one thing that is very great, and I'm so thankful for our leadership here, is that they have created COVID-19 response teams that had been meeting for about a month and a half prior to all of this unfolding. And so at that point, we had everything ready to go, and it was just a matter of we need to activate. And so we activated, we extended our spring break until this Monday. And that gave us time to put in place a response for students to come back to campus, gather their things, and go. We put together, I think, like similarly with everyone else, different emergency plan response forms for students to fill out. For us, we, of course, similar to other institutions, are allowing extensions for students with challenges of returning, including international students, financial insecurity, home insecurity, things of that nature. And so it has been really interesting, I think, because we were planning to run our operation with very remote people still being in the office. And once we got our non-essential staff need to go home, although residence life is essential, we said we can't risk it. And so we are all working from home, and duty staff are reporting to campus within that rotation as needed. So it has definitely been every day is a new day. And I am still very thankful for my leadership, because definitely their response went in pretty quickly. I will say that we gave our students until April 5th to move out. And so that has been an interesting challenge for students to do virtual checkouts and to report back to campus by May 9th to gather their belongings. So our goal is to get people as home as quickly as possible.
Thanks, Mary Catherine. And Paul.
Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Boydach. I am an assistant director at the University of Dayton. Not to continue to repeat many of the things that my colleagues have said, it's very similar at the University of Dayton. We announced spring break would be starting 3 days early, with the possibility that we would be returning sometime in April without a specific date. And then last week, the president announced that we would be completely remaining online for the remainder of the school year. We're also on semesters, so we are currently and also, like Illinois, we are in a shelter in place as well, which has also added to some of our abilities to be able to have students move or transition out of our housing. We still have a small number of students living with us still that we are supporting through our wonderful dining staff, who are continuing to provide support for them. And some students are still living with us as they transition to their home country, home state, or wherever they're from. We're still supporting them into that process. And very similar to our colleagues, my colleagues, is that we have duty staff, we have staff responding to campus if a student needs vital items and such too. So very similar to my colleagues.
Thanks, Paul, and thanks everyone for sharing kind of where you're at on your campuses. That's really helpful information for us, and as we ask questions and speak about topics shortly. So again, I just want to bring us back to the Zoom menu, where you've got that Q&A function where you can start submitting topics you want us to touch on. And I want to bring us back to the raise hand function as well. So we heard quite a few of our co-facilitators share that the states they're in are in a shelter in place. So some states might call that shelter in place. Some may call that a stay-at-home order. If you are in a state that has had one of those stay-at-home type orders enacted, if you could just raise your hand. As the panelists also are like, yep, we're all raising our hands. Okay, well, that is a very vast majority. I'd be hard pressed to figure out who isn't in a stay-at-home shelter-in-place situation yet. So thank you all again for that. Appreciate that activity. So let's talk about, we had a number of you share that your students you have some students that you made exceptions to that can stay on campus for a variety of great reasons, very valid reasons. However, are you seeing your campuses getting ready to consolidate those students who remain on campus into a centralized space? Are we letting them stay where they've been residing? I've seen a lot of institutions that's based on like bathroom style types. Previous virtual roundtables we've had this week have been about 6 to 7%. I've seen as some common numbers are the numbers of students who are still on campus. So if you could just kind of go around and share, are you consolidating or not consolidating? What does that look like on your campuses?
I can start. With the low number of students that we have on our campus, we were actually able to get everyone into one residence hall, which has been actually great. Initially, we thought we were going to have potentially up to a couple hundred students staying on campus for a variety of reasons, but that's also when we thought there would be more happening on the campus physically. So when we got the numbers down as low as we did, we actually decided to use a suite style residence hall. And the other really great benefit is not only did we get everyone into one building, but we got everyone their own private room with their own private bathroom, which has the added additional nice feature, not nice feature, I suppose, but the additional ability for us later, if any one of our students who do remain on campus do happen to get sick, quarantining them in their own space is going to make things a lot easier because they're not even sharing a bathroom with anyone at this point. So yeah, that's kind of where what we were able to do in terms of consolidation.
We followed a similar process. We were going to consolidate all of our students into one building. We made the decision to not do that because we hold a master lease with an off-campus apartment where we have students that are off-site in what is still considered our housing. And so we would have had to move them back to main campus. And when the shelter in place came in act from our county, we decided to not obviously have our students trying to move throughout the shelter in place. So we allowed those students to remain at the apartment, but we consolidated our students that were in residence halls that had communal bathrooms. And we, similar to Rick, put them into communities where they would have private suites with private bathrooms, but it also allowed us to put them in communities where they had access to kitchens inside of those cottage units. Knowing that our dining was going to go to a very limited schedule, we wanted to try to give all of our students access to kitchens. And so we were able to do that, which has been really great for our students that were able to still be able to work and we're not going to be able to make it to those limited dining hours.
At this time, we are not consolidating. There were some initial concerns about gathering another large population in one area, and if there were any concerns about a potential outbreak, again, we want students to be as far away from each other as possible. I will say again, with our April 5th deadline of when we want students moved out, that could potentially be reassessed for later, but for right now, we're not consolidating.
I was just going to add, just like many of my colleagues too, same thing. I think we have had plans in every direction to be prepared for that, but as of right now, our students are not moving.
Thanks, Owen. As we stay on the topic of students, let's talk about student staffs. So what's the state of student employees, student staff members in your departments? Are you keeping some on? Have you sent them home? Or if they fall into the criteria of stay on campus, are they staying on campus to be a student, or are they staying on campus to be a student employee as well? Items like that. So student staff.
Our student staff, we have really not leaned on them for many of the things that we need done. We've been using a lot of our live-in staff to really support the things that we need, and they have been doing some amazing work in making sure that our students have the things they need, from packages to access if something happens, especially when they're on duty. We've been utilizing our duty staff more than our student staff at all.
Our student staff, as soon as we realized where this was going, our student staff immediately just became students to us. And we very immediately encouraged them to worry about themselves and getting home, and then that transition to that online instruction, because we know that was going to be a big transition for them. As you can imagine, they struggled with that a little bit because RAs are some of the most dedicated and devoted people on any college campus. And so at this time, as we are starting to figure out what our new normal is, we are looking to do some touch points with our staff to let them know that, we haven't forgotten about them, and that we really are looking to make sure that they know that we didn't leave them high and dry, but we really need them to be concerned with themselves and getting to a place where they can be comfortable and be safe.
Bobby, I need you to unmute yourself. So sorry. Oh. No, I think we might have lost
Okay,
Bobby's.
can you hear me now?
Yes, yeah, there you are.
There we
Hi.
go. So many multiple devices over here. So when our university made the decision to begin our transition to online classes, we also wanted our student staff to just be treated as students. We didn't want our RAs initially to feel that responsibility for their peers. We wanted them to focus on themselves and getting home. And so for those resident assistants that were approved to stay for other circumstances, they have wanted to engage with their peers on campus. And so we've thought about opportunities to be equitable in how we allow them to maybe assist with some of that student engagement, knowing that there's limitations to resources that we can offer. And so we're looking at creative ways to be able to utilize some of their expertise in peer-to-peer relationships while still being equitable with the fact that we do have a number of them that are no longer able to be employed.
So I think we have a couple of interesting different challenges at DePaul than maybe what's been discussed so far. Like my colleagues, we did definitely keep some RAs who, on a voluntary basis to be living in the residence hall that we have open. So we do have some of that. But in addition to the RA staff at DePaul, we have about 300 additional student employees in various other roles throughout the entirety of our department. And I would say about 5% of those employees can actually work remotely. And the rest their jobs depend on being on campus. So when the shelter in place order was issued by our governor, we decided very quickly, other than the few RA staff that we had left behind, we wanted all of our students to go and be safe. But DePaul has made the decision as an institution to pay all of our student employees across the university, as long as if they can't find remote work, which some departments will have more opportunities than others, they're going to get paid anyway through minimally May 1st, just so that they don't lose those wages. And then further decisions beyond May 1st will be made probably in the coming weeks. So trying to figure out how to effectively and fairly pay 300 student staff who are not going to be able to really do any actual work has been an interesting kind of conundrum that we've been working through especially this last week. But we think we found a fair way to pay some average numbers of hours to our employees to make it consistent across the board. So that's kind of where we're at with our student staff overall.
Thanks, Rick, and thanks everyone. This next question, it's going to go to both our co-facilitators and our attendees. Our attendees, if this question, you have a great answer for this, or you have something great that you'd like to share, this is going to be your opportunity to raise your hand, and we can bring you into this topic as well. So for everyone, I'm looking for some ways that you've been able to show your student staff member support, or you're able to show student support in this. I realize many of you said, we treat them as students. We don't want them to be student employees anymore. But what are some what are some ways you've been able to show support to students, whether that's been as they're moving out in person or even virtually?
My division actually just put out a video today of different campus partners within our division with just showing our tiger pride and letting students know. Myself and my dog were actually in the video, and really showing this raw format that we are all in our homes right now trying to figure out what is going on and doing our best, and just really showing students that we're still here for you, and we're still going to support you through all of this. And so I thought the video, and they got it together, I think, in 2 days. They asked for it on the 24th and it was out today. So I think that's 3 days. And so I really appreciated that message, and it got out pretty quickly. So I really appreciated that effort.
So our Director of Student Involvement is chairing a task force that includes Residence Life and some of our other student life units that called Bringing Peace to You. And so it's hashtag Peace to You. That is a virtual engagement plan that brings together all of our student life units, offering wellness engagement, offering just community building engagement through social media, through Zoom. We had a variety of campus activities board programs that we had to table, but a number of those vendors and artists offer virtual options. And so it's kind of a calendar of informal, but also some more formal engagement opportunities that our students will be able to participate in, but also to feel supported and try to keep that connection, even though they're spread out all over the country. And so that's an initiative that will be coming. Again, I'm at a small private institution, so a very collaborative cross-campus initiative that's happening.
Our Live-In staff have been tasked with finding out ways that they can engage with their students through their communities to kind of give them and support for our students across campus. And so specifically through newsletters, through Zoom type opportunities, in addition, collaboratively working with our campus ministry office and working with their office to be able to provide opportunities for support for students, doing some outreach for maybe some students who might be alone or might not have a community where they're at while they're sheltering in place. In addition, our president has also done some Zoom opportunities, which have been pretty cool to see that, and the students have been very appreciative of that too, to show that there's engagement even beyond. And through social media and stuff, it's Dayton is well known for our sheet signs, and even our social media has been showing our students at home making sheet signs about where they're at, and a community going beyond just Dayton itself.
I think I would echo pretty much everything my colleagues have just said. I think we're also kind of learning and discovering how to do this just like everyone else. I think that communication in general, we've been at this for, like I said, about 2 weeks now. So I think from the moment it started, there's been good communication. I think it was probably fumbled a few times just because things were changing so rapidly, literally by the hour. In some cases, so trying to keep up with what we were communicating to not only our students, but also our faculty and staff has been a challenge. But I think now that we've sort of all started kind of coming to grips with and acclimating a little bit more to this new reality, we've really shifted the focus of, okay, spring quarter starts on Monday. How are we going to keep the students engaged? How are we going to continue to provide those resources, those services, that shoulder to cry on if that's what they need? Whatever it may be. So I think there's a lot of great talented people at the university working through that. We also have our Live On staff who I know are going to do great things. So it's going to be, I think the theme of all of this for all of us is it's just a very unprecedented, no rule book kind of time, but I think we're all working hard to figure it out.
Certainly. And, Paul, I think that was all great content. Paul, you brought something up in terms of working with other departments. And I'd ask us all to think about what are some great partnerships or great ways that you've all been able to work with other departments as we've been going through this. or any examples that you'd share, or advice that you might give to another group to take a look at a potential option.
I think we have 2 questions before us right now. And I actually had a meeting just before this call, this webinar, with our director of student involvement. And we were talking about sort of 2 audiences that we really want to focus on. The smaller audience is the still on-campus population that we've been talking about. We want to provide them great resources. I mean, they're here and they're here for a reason, but we want to make sure that they still stay engaged and feel part of the university community. And then the bigger audience, of course, is everyone else, all the other students who have gone to their various homes, home states, home countries, and figuring out ways to keep them engaged and involved as they continue their student education, albeit on an online process. So I think, Spencer, to your point, now more than ever, I think campus partnerships are going to be so critical to be able to put those resources together and have a combined force of great ideas, great ways and opportunities in which to carry those ideas out.
I think for me, one of the strong partnerships that I really had to lean on, and I think they had to lean on us too, was our academic affairs partners. The transition to online learning and online education has been very challenging for faculty, for students. And so we really had to lean on each other through this process, sharing resources, being sure that the opportunities for engagement that we were planning and how we were planning to support students was not going to create, more stress or strain on the fact that they were already overwhelmed, that the move out process and how we were communicating with students complemented the communication that was coming from academic affairs. And that transition to online courses was gonna, be a huge cloud over our students. And so we had to kind of work in tandem with academic affairs every step of the way through this process to support them, as well as to make sure that we were supporting our students as this transition was happening.
I can't take any credit for this, but our Dean of Students office, we are very high touch at the University of Dayton. They have already developed a protocol in checking with students when students are not performing well in class still, or if they're not participating through online engagement. The Dean of Students office has developed a protocol to make sure that we are utilized as residence life staff to making sure we're doing some outreach to our students to see, hey, is everything okay? Can we be support to you? Is there something going on? Can we be supportive? Virtually doing that versus in the past, we might have gone to their door. Now we're doing it through a digital means or through some phone calls and utilizing our resources to make sure that we're supporting the students well beyond just the community that we've always done, but doing it in a very different manner. And I have to give credit for our campus ministry because they are a great resource to our students, even when they don't even talk about faith. It's just being a support to them and helping them navigate the things that are going on in this world, things that they're fearful of, not necessarily in a counseling sense, but also just in the support and knowing that you have someone to talk to. And I think that's one collaboration that I've been really proud of that has been in place very quickly.
And so if I just add one more collaboration that we're starting to work on is with our Office of Retention. One of our concerns, I see all the head nods. One of our concerns is, students that were already the murky middle, right? That were already struggling or maybe already questioning whether they were going to return to the university. This might make that decision for them, right? Their separation physically from campus might make that decision for them. And so Residence Life is going to be assisting with some of those phone calls, some of those retention alerts, utilizing our Starfish system a lot more closely over the next couple of weeks to try to make sure we are recommitting those students to the university for next semester. I think one of the other things that we're starting to talk about is how this transition might make people start thinking about, the value of the on-campus experience. And so how are we forecasting some of those conversations and ensuring that we're still articulating that value of engagement and on-campus experience on campus?
Well said, Bobby. Okay, Mary Catherine's good. I'm gonna jump into a couple of our Q&As that have come in First of all, I know Julie McMahon had brought up the shelter-in-place kind of exemption for college campuses, which I've heard that in numerous places. So for a lot of our states have gone shelter-in-place, you can still move a student out. That colleges and universities are able to have that be done. So hopefully that has not impacted the ability for move-out processes to occur. And Julie McMahon again, I love it. Let's see. I'm just going to read what she said, talking about registration being moved back for classes, financial aid. And I think, and to add to what she's saying, I'm seeing a lot of institutions consider not looking at ACT, SAT scores, but just looking at applicants. So I think that'll actually could be a great barrier to take away from students to be able to get to college, just a financial barrier, and then just one more step and hurdle that hopefully can help students get there. We had another question about how are schools handling room lottery, room selection. Co-facilitators, have those processes already occurred on your campuses, or those were set to still occur? Where are we at with housing selection? I'm going to need more than a nod, Rick. Help me out.
Okay, I'll help you out, Spencer. So room selection for DePaul has not occurred yet. It occurs in April every year. And the interesting thing about our room selection process is that it remains, and has always been, as long as I've been there, an in-person process. So we invite students to come, visit with our staff, be able to ask questions in person about their living arrangements for the following year. So we have talked about this. We know that we will not be able to, obviously have an in-person room selection process this year. So we will be doing it online. We are working on the details. If anyone's interested, we're a Star Res school. I'm not promoting Star Res, I'm just saying we are. And so we're learning how to, kind of utilize the system differently than we have in the past, because we've not really done any of our room assignments online up to this point. So that is going to be a learning process for us over the next quantity of weeks, as we prepare for probably a late April room selection process online for the first time for us.
I can share that at the University of Dayton, we have a very unique system. So our students collect points through participating through campus events and through floor meetings, doing a roommate agreement. They get points for those throughout the school year. Our point system ended in February, and so they then get priority selection for their next year's housing based on their points that they have collected, and they go through an online selection process to see the different properties that they're interested in. I think at this point it is delayed at this point, but luckily our system is already online, and I think this is a great opportunity for any institution. If you are thinking about transitioning online, this is a great opportunity to create that system in place, and we've been really lucky that that system's in place because we have such a high residency for our students during all 4 years of college. So it's definitely something that we've had a blessing for. So yeah.
Our process is already complete, and that did take place online. That happened in late February. We are also really blessed that our group process day also happened already. I know that impacted a lot of different institutions that they were trying to hire student staff. So thankfully those things just happened so much earlier in the semester for us that we avoided that.
Yes, very similar. We were very lucky in that all of our in-person sessions for room selection and RA training, RA selection have been completed as well. So now we're just moving into our online portion of housing selection.
Thanks, all. Something Bobby, you brought up on our last conversation, you're talking about that value of living on campus. And what I would challenge us all to think about are, how are we going to continue to show that that is a great on-campus experience and that's crucial to the college experience? I think there's going to be challenges that we may face, or that is an opportunity. I would call it an opportunity for us. So as you're thinking about it, whether this is co-facilitators or these are audience members, What other ways that you've already been thinking about how we can help make that on-campus experience valuable in the future? Maybe things we've learned from this process already.
I think one of the things that we're thinking about is how do we partner with our parents and families in different ways on our campus. And so the communication with our parents and families, how we establish that partnership, as well as how we're utilizing our residence life live-in staff and ensuring that the resources available to our students on campus, that it's very clear. We are trying to do a better job with articulating those resources that are available to our students, how our students take advantage of them, how they impact student success on campus, and making sure that we're telling the stories of our students that live on campus. We have a 3-year residency requirement, and so we have to do a better job about telling the story of how being on campus impacts the success and engagement of our students overall. And so this is definitely making that become even more of a priority, that we have to do a better job at doing that, capturing those stories, but also telling them.
I just want to piggyback off of what Bobby just said. Not only do we have to do a better job of telling our story, I think we have to do we have to now do maybe in some ways a new job of telling our story online in a way that we haven't had to do so in the past. I know that DePaul has relied heavily on our, sort of everyday tours of campus and showing people physically a residence hall and a tour room. And, we have to now completely reimagine that and still sell that experience and really kind of talk about the value of living on campus, but also how to have that online presence work differently maybe than it has in the past. I'm sure we all have an online footprint already, but relying solely on that for the next several months is going to be an interesting twist for us.
I just want to continue that conversation of my colleagues hearing about sharing our own story. I think this is the first time I've ever thought about how important it is to share the small things that we do, just like the isolation spaces or the care spaces that we provide students when they're sick, because those things are going to continue probably into the fall, and making sure we share those great perks that we provide students when these things, and the care that we provide that a typical off-campus landlord might not provide that we do, and the care that we provide students when something does happen, and how we provide that support so they can continue their education in a healthy way as much as possible.
Well, literally took the words out of my mouth. I'm literally thinking about the experience of students having to quarantine on campus and quarantine in their off-campus residence, and what that contact looks like. We still have people checking in with those students, but it's going to be a big difference. And so just really trying to echo, how do we share that story of what care looked like when you were on campus, when you were at possibly one of your most vulnerable while you've been here with us this year.
Yeah, and again, this work is really student-centered. At the end of all we do, I mean, it's for the students. So really continue to give that experience. I think you all bring up great points. And to be a student on campus in this, rather than being a student off campus, I have to imagine, hopefully that's a dramatic difference in experience that they've had. So, a question I have for the group and for our attendees is really one of the what's next. So we're in so many different levels of having students move off campus, working with those students, and our headspace is so full. But if we really start to think about what are the next 2 to 3 months going to look like? What do you think your focus is going to go to? Maybe your department has already stated, this is where our focus is going to go to in 2 weeks. Maybe we need to get these students off by April 5th. But after that, here's where our headspace is going to be. So, and I would love if people put this in the question and answer, what you're seeing on your campuses, and hear from our co-facilitators. Where do you think your focus is going to go next?
I would say just for me, I know we've talked quite a bit about students. I think over the next 2 weeks, one of just my major focuses is my staff, my full-time staff. I think that there is just a lot of strain on what it means to be an essential staff member during this time. How are we supporting staff? I was having a conversation with what I consider to be my village, which is some of my friends that are directors and associate directors across the country. And we've had this conversation about how are we supporting our live-in staff during this time? What resources do they need? And how are we empowering them and making sure that they're taking care of themselves, as well as weighing that weight of what it means to take care of the students that maybe didn't have anywhere to go. And so I'm trying to just make sure right now that I'm focusing on my live-in staff and providing them with the resources and support that they need, while also trying to provide support to my supervisor and my boss and some of my leadership that has had to make some really difficult decisions while we continue to navigate decisions as our state makes changes and decisions that are coming down the pipeline. We are trying to figure out, what are we doing for our seniors who have been waiting for this experience, right? And commencement now has been postponed, and many of those opportunities have been postponed. And so how are we still continuing to show support, help them to still establish affinity as alums, while also knowing that we don't know when we're going to be able to provide some of these experiences for them. I think we're thinking ahead and trying to forecast what is the summer going to look like for us. Are we still going to be able to move forward with conference operations? Are we still going to be able to move forward with orientation? And a lot of that stuff is hard to forecast because, as we've seen, things are changing so rapidly. And so we're coming up with plan A, B, and C for what we're going to be doing for our next steps right now.
I think the language that I have been using is typically the language we use after a crisis, is really trying to figure out what the new normal is going to be. I think one of the most difficult things about that is we are not sure. And so I think, echoing what Bobby said, really trying to, I don't want to say get people comfortable, but getting people to understand that they can ask questions, but we're not going to have answers for a while. And it is not that we are ignoring people. It is that we don't know. And there is nowhere to go and source that answer until we get to that point. I think one of the things that is, I think my entire staff right now is just wanting to do work. And so one of the biggest things that we are focusing on in our department is onboarding some project management software and getting to task on task managing people, things that we can project that potentially will be a part of our future. People are really looking to be productive in this time. I think that is how a lot of people are doing their self-care, is trying to stay busy. And so we are really trying to gear up for creating tasks and projects for people to be working on independently or in small groups so that they can feel that they are contributing. I think that Residence Life are made up of helpers, and people want to feel like they're helping. And so making sure that we are providing space for people to be able to contribute, because not everyone can be on duty right now. That's not effective. We are truthfully we are not a all hands on deck department. We are a go until you're called department. And so people are just waiting for that call. And so we're trying to create opportunities for us to tap individuals.
I really want to echo the phrase, our new normal, because in my previous institution, we had a few situations where there was measles outbreak or mumps outbreaks, and how we had to quarantine those students and how they had access to food. I think this is going to be reflective in how we deal with COVID in the future, and if we're going to have future waves of that. And so I really think about, for me, do we have that protocol in place to address isolation of students? How are they going to get food in those isolation situations? How are we going to have those conversations with dining, of access to making sure those students have the ability to eat and be able to use those meal plans if they don't have the ability to get those things or work with someone to do that? I think about how the hard work that we do all the time in residence life or in housing in general is how we move from process to process so quickly without being able to look at the process and look at how things are done. And I think this is the first time that we can all take a step back and say, is our checkout process really that deep? Do we need to make those processes so intricate? And how we have a student return a key or check out of their room, we've created entire processes around purpose sometimes for us as residence life staff, and really thinking about how are we best serving our students. And I can tell right now, no one's taking keys directly from a person anymore. And I think that's how we can think about how we're doing our processes. And this is a wonderful time to be thinking about how deep our processes have become sometimes, and how can we simplify that, because we all know that our new procedures are going to come down the line, new processes are going to come down the line eventually, and what are some things that we can let go and that have always been part of our processes and our departments, and what can we let go because new things are going to be continued to add to our plate, and how we support students in general.
I would absolutely echo the comments of my colleagues, and I would also just say that I think the what's next question is probably the most prevalent question on everyone's mind, our staffs, our students. One thing that I've heard over and over again, and have said probably over and over again, is that there's no rule book, there's no handbook for this. I think it's on us to write that handbook, and I think that may mean that we're writing the new norm. That we're writing new processes that are not just in response to COVID, but also make sense, kind of going along with what Paul was just saying. It's a great opportunity to really look at those different processes that we've gotten so comfortable with over the years, because they work and they've worked fine, but are they the most effective? And can we think about doing things differently? So while the reasons for being able to explore these processes are certainly horrible and nothing any of us would want to be dealing with, it does offer some opportunities that I think help us get to that what's next question, in a way that, and the what's next is, what's next tomorrow, what's next week, what's next in 3 months, what's next for the fall. And we can't answer all those questions, absolutely, but we can start to think about what things could look like as a result of taking a deep dive into all of this.
Honestly, really well said by you all. I can tell you've all been quite introspective about this, and we need to be thinking about the future in a positive way. The future equals hope. The future equals we're going to get through this. And I'm glad that, we're taking some time to think about what that vision looks like. So thank you. Great points there. In our Q&A chat, some, great topics and great points there as well of what other folks are seeing as their focus areas on their campuses. So thank you for sharing that there. I want to be mindful of time as we are coming near the close, and I want to be mindful on a Friday. You've given us an hour of your time, so I want to make sure that we are wrapping up accordingly. So I'm going to, one last time around the horn, for each of our co-facilitators, if you just got one tip, one piece of feedback, one special something you'd share with the group while we're all handling this in different ways, maybe something you enjoy, something you found to be helpful, a bright spot. Really, this is an open forum question. So each of you, your closing thoughts before we wrap up today.
I would say, if you can, take the time to think that grocery store employee, the postal worker who's delivering things for us, they are the backbone of our country right now. And being able to say thank you to those people, because they have gone above and beyond, and they're putting themselves at risk on a daily basis to make sure that we have the things we need. We all have been working so hard in residence life. There are many people who have been even working harder than all of us too at some point. So I think it's really important to take that opportunity to thank those people who've been going above and beyond, and it is the backbone of our country right now during this crisis, most of all.
I think for me, I have to try to remind myself to do something for me, do something that I enjoy, do something to kind of take my mind away from this conversation. It's when you're trying to be your best for everyone else, and you're also concerned about your own family, right? You're concerned about yourself, your own health, being out in the community as well. And so making sure that you're taking some time for yourself taking time for your own family, setting up whatever boundaries that you need to, and finding some of those bright spots, whether it is watching whatever that tiger show is on Netflix, but finding that moment to step away for a second and tune out everything that is going on in all of the kind of abundance of communication so that you can have those moments of hope as well.
The presence of sorrow does not mean the absence of joy, and I feel that deeply in my soul. And I refuse on my personal social media to post about COVID-19. I am only posting about what is the best cereal, pictures of my dogs, and reading stories for kids who are stuck at home. I refuse. And if you want to take part in that, feel free to friend me on Facebook. I super don't care, but you're not going to find that on my Facebook page. I am trying to spread joy. And so remembering that this is a stressful time for everyone and everyone grieves, because this is a grieving moment for a lot of us. Everyone grieves in a different way, and allowing people just that grace and that space, because some people need it so much. You may be rocking this right now, but there are some people who are not. And so just knowing that joy still exists in this world right now, you just need to look a little extra hard for it.
I would say, let's not forget that hope is something that people need. It's something that people cling on to. But I also think we need to remember now is not the time to instill false hope. So by that, I mean, when you give a response to a question and the answer is, I don't know, that's okay right now. I know as a group of professionals, that's not an answer that we like. It's not an answer that we're familiar with giving, but it's important to be honest about that right now, because we don't know. We don't know if the worst is yet to come. We don't know what that's gonna and what the far-reaching effects are gonna look like. We don't know what fall semester is gonna look like, and it's okay to say that. But also knowing that there's ways to still reinforce that hope, even if you don't know all the answers, and that's got to be okay too.
And I'd add to what Paul was saying about the people to thank. And if you've been in residence life for a while, it's a caring field. And another caring field I always think about is nursing. And we've probably had a lot of our students that have come through our halls that have then gone into nursing programs and maybe professionals now. And I've been doing my darndest to reach out to those folks, to thank them, because wherever they are, whatever state, whatever city, more likely than not, they're going to end up on the front lines of this at some point. So thank them, support them, keep in touch, especially if it's someone that you've already kept in touch with before now. And then I really try to take morning, before work, after work walks, throw on the AirPods, pick up the phone, call some people while you walk, get in touch, get in community, so we're not alone in this. Before we go, and before I do my grand thank you to our co-facilitators, a couple of things I want to bring up for the group before we go. Again, that's the address to our resource page. We had our second straw poll from a QI complete, and we've been posting information on that, so check out our social media and our web page for that. We do have 3 virtual roundtables next week, so we are having a Wednesday virtual roundtable about case management, where we're working with the Higher Education Case Management Association and really talk about caring for others. So that's going to be a really dynamic virtual roundtable. On Thursday, we have a virtual roundtable for senior housing officers with a focus on repurposing facility space, as we're seeing more and more universities and colleges being asked to take some of their spaces and maybe turn it into emergency rooms or hospital beds. And then Friday, we are going to be having an overarching facilities conversation, and we're partnering with ACUI and NERSA on that facilities conversation about our campuses. So that is the slate of virtual roundtables for next week. Our co-facilitators for today, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your expertise and for just sharing what's going on, what's on your heart. So excellent content today. To our attendees, thanks for taking an hour on a Friday. I know it's Friday. And hopefully this is a great jumpstart into your weekend and taking time for yourself and finding joy in what we're doing in life still. So thank you all. We'll see you online again next week. Have a great day.